Great day in the morning to you. It is Monday, June 10th, 2019, Anno Domini, AD, the year of our Lord, as it were. And welcome to Uncle Benny's Creepy Campfire Stories. We're going to talk about some creepy stories. And this is really a subdivision of Uncle Benny's Creepy Campfire Stories called the Sludge Report. So what this is a reframing of the most popular conservative aggregate website in the world, which is called the Drudge Report. And it is an influential website, which is effectually, it's ostensibly, that's a great word, because there are a lot of things that are ostensible, people, but they aren't really what they purport themselves to be. So ostensibly, it is it's all the news that you really need to know of what's important. You know, they serve it up on a plate for you. What's important, what you should be thinking about, what should be in your consciousness, what you need to know at the proverbial water cooler. Okay. So the fact is, though, it's really satanic propaganda to rob you of your joy, to steal the life out of you, to spin things so you're living in a world of deceit. You know, if you've seen any of these, you already know this, and I'm being a little bit redundant, but hey, these are early days, and I'm kicking it off, and I'm hashing it out, I'm hammering it out, I'm shaping it up, and we'll see how it goes. So it's a little after 7:09 Eastern time in the United States, and I'd like to say I'm going to keep this under 30 minutes, but it's going to go where it goes. I already know some of the things I'm going to talk about, but I don't know how I'm going to expand upon them and how long that'll take. And, I've got a little room this morning to go a little longer. It doesn't mean you're obligated to watch the whole thing, and it isn't going to hurt my feelers if you turn it off. It doesn't hurt my feelers if you don't watch it at all. I'm doing this for an exercise and for my own exercise. This is a workout. All right. This is a little bit of calisthenics for me. Get the blood moving, get the spirit flowing, and, tune in, turn on, and, the last part of that's drop out, but, hey, I did that a long time ago. So anyway, moving on. Okay. So we're looking at you see it on the screen there. I've got a few tabs open. I don't know if you can see that, but I've got a few tabs open that we're gonna look at and kind of go through. But of course, right now we're gonna do our doom dots. So what does that mean? That means we're gonna go through, and I did not yet count up. I'm feeling like I'm letting the morning get away from me, and I want to get on this. We're gonna go through. I didn't count up all the links. Count up all the links and do a percentage of how many of these headlines in and of themselves, just if you just read the headlines, it's destabilizing. It's destabilizing to your psyche unless you are firmly planted on the ground. And what ground is that? The foundation of the truth in the Word of God, where we are in the stream of time, and what it all means in the context of biblical truth. Now, when I say Bible, I'm talking about the 66 book canon. However, for me, there's a lot more to it than that. What does that mean? Well, guess who handed down the Bible to you, right? People like this. Now, does that mean that the Bible is invalid because, and you might be Roman Catholic? Well, if you keep watching this for long, you won't be, okay? If you have a heart for truth, you're going to come out of that whore, okay? Nevertheless, those were different days. Different doesn't mean, God can use anything. He can make the rocks cry out. He can have a donkey talk. Can have a serpent speak, Well, that's all mythological. That's just fantastic. That's why the Bible isn't true. Well, I got news for you, son. You're living in a created reality. You were created. The earth was created. How can you limit God, what he can do? It's his. Everything, there's, here we go. So people like to make a distinction between natural and supernatural. Well, maybe that's helpful in classifying certain phenomenon or experiences, but if it exists, isn't it natural? Aha. Think about that one. Now think about it. You could put supernatural, it's a way of compartmentalizing, isn't it? It's a way of fracturing not your personality, but a way of fracturing your thinking. All right, so let's move on. So we're gonna do the doom dots, and we're gonna have a little background music, and our background music is gonna be a well, let's just say these are some people who are really, really looking up. They're singing, "I Want to Be Ready." Be ready, walking in Jerusalem, just like John, walking in. Just like John. Well, I don't know about you and how it's coming through on the audio, but that kind of unity and spirit and spiritual song can make your hair stand on end, give you the goosebumps, Well, I'll put the link in the description. In fact, that's one thing that's changed in this a little development here. I'm going to try to put links in the description. Now, I got a lot of links in here today that just might get me my channel shut down, possibly, well, that's YouTube for you. Oh, Ben, you're anti-Semite. Well, you don't know me then, okay? I'm going to actually talk about that a little bit today because it's a recurring theme. There's a lot of recurring themes lately. You're going to have a recurring theme of homosexuality. Oh, you're homophobic. Nope. I have a history of knowing gay people, and they may never have heard my thoughts on this like this, but how have I treated them? Respectfully and compassionately, and all that aside, just like a human being, like another person. In fact, I've cared about some of them, well, all of them, but you know what I mean. I've only had, they're statistically a minority, so I've had a few friends that I've known that that happen to be gay people. Well, you know what? If you think I'm just putting this out there because I'm going to talk about things that I know this is not going to defuse you. You're going to react to your programming. Talked about that yesterday. You're going to react from your programming, and this becomes almost like a static charge, a static discharge, where you have this reaction to any kind of a discussion about, like, I'm going to talk about the Jews, and that's a very broad brush word, because that's not who I'm talking about. Just because somebody's quote unquote Jewish, there's a specific practitioners of specific doctrines, and they're deceiving people with them, the whole world, even evangelical churchianity. But the point being is that this is about the doctrines. When it comes to, when I talk about quote unquote the Jews, this is about, and the effects, so obviously the manifestations of that. And this is about when I talk about like, I'm going to talk about this mayoral presidential candidate, pronounced Buttigieg, but whatever. It's kind of a weird name, isn't it? Buttigieg, butt gouge. That's what I've said before, because I really didn't know how to pronounce it and had to laugh, because it's along the lines of something almost absurd and unlikely. I mean, just think about this for a minute. You got to remember the context. Context is king. All the world's a stage. And when you've got a stage, you got players. The authors give the characters names. So oftentimes the names are characteristic of the characters. So you've got, like, for example, Ellen DeGeneres. I remember when that came out, and she came out, Ellen DeGeneres. It's so close to the word degenerate, which is, a very negative word towards people who are, I would say, afflicted, who are afflicted with homosexuality. I say afflicted because what a hell of a thing to have to deal with that. Those things going on inside you that are contrary to nature, contrary formerly to most of society. Most of society. I don't mean just a majority or minority. I'm talking about the vast majority, where that's and it's still that way in many societies today. You even hear about it in the news. Thankfully that some of the things that go on around the world towards people who are homosexuals don't happen here. They enjoy quite a bit of freedom and ability to go about their own business without being killed, stoned, murdered. I mean, that happens, but not like, anyway, I'm going far afield here. So let's get into the Doom Dots thing. So how many we got here? 5 in this column, 7 in this column, 3 in this column. So we got 15 Doom Dots. Huh. Anyway, yeah. So back to the homosexuality thing. Again, this context. This is all about recurring themes. They're coming up. They're always in the news. It's always in the news. What can I do about it? My job right now, I've taken it upon myself to go through the news and demonstrate, I guess, one way of looking at it. I find it's like having hinds feet in high places. You're able to, if what I mean by that, what's a hind? We're talking about like a mountain goat. If you ever seen a mountain goat navigate steep rock surfaces, just impossible looking. So I wish I had a picture. I should pull a picture for next time. To navigate and to traverse treacherous ground where most animals and most people would fall to their deaths. Well, what's happening when you put these most people, whether they're getting it on their local channel, on their radio news breaks, on NPR, National Propaganda Radio, on CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN, Fox, you name it. They're getting these things one way or the other. Same stories. Okay. And well, now you're getting them from me, but I'm trying to field dress them for you a little bit. Right now, when I talk like that, it makes it sound like I'm some expert. About the only thing I'm an expert in is maybe scrambled eggs. I've been making scrambled eggs since I was reportedly 3 years old, when I endeavored to fire up the stove, got on a stool, got out of my mother's sight, and was hungry or something, and I started making scrambled eggs. So that's true, though. I'm pretty well an expert at making scrambled eggs. Making other kinds of eggs, I'm pretty good at too. Maybe borderline expert. I can cook. Okay, I can cook all right. But I will tell you that what that means is I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm not an expert in world affairs and world news. I'm not an expert theologian. I'm not any of that. All I'm doing is I'm doing me. That's all. How about that? So you know what? Take it or leave it. And now where was I? Yeah, so recurring themes. I can't help it. You know, we've got these election things that are, it's just pounded into our head. So that's all going on. So it raises all these issues. So when you've got elections going on the national level, what are the things they use to polarize people? Abortion, so pro-choice, pro-life, right? They use that. LGBTQ, LMNOP issues, they use that. Okay. So you got to understand, I'm not fixated on this. Those don't affect me, really. I don't think about these things throughout my day because I'm not gay and I'm not having an abortion. And I'm not out putting myself in situations where I got to consider that, you know? So by the grace of God. So on both counts, there you go. So it's not a fixation of mine. Oh yeah. Also the Jew thing. I'd really rather not have to deal with it. But unfortunately, when you get hit with reality, it's something you have to deal with. It's reality. Now, the fact is, most people aren't even aware of the reality. I don't know most people, but you know what I mean. Okay. So if I make you aware of the reality, you do your own, you make your own conclusions. But there was a point in time I wasn't aware of it. I'm glad I know now. It's true. It's really true. Ignorance is bliss. Yet there comes a time when a blind man takes your hand and says, "Don't you see?" So don't you want to see? Don't you want to see? Don't you want to know what's happening to you? Now, there's not a lot we can do to change the world as it's going down. As it's going down in flames, man. There's not a lot we can do. But as the story goes about the little boy who's picking up all the starfish that are washed up on the beach one day, and he's throwing them back into the ocean trying to save them. And an old man walks by and he says, "You're never going to save all these starfish, so it's kind of a waste of your time." And the little boy looks up at him and says, "Well, to this starfish, it means everything." And he throws it out to the water again, or something like that. Okay. So let's move on. Here's your doom dots. There's 15 of them right here out of, well, you can just look at the colors, right? It's a pretty good ratio. And some of them, I didn't even put dots on, like, look, you can see like this little line in here that's divides the sections, and very often they'll have like a repeat title linked to the same thing. Okay. They want to make sure that you get the repeat note, ding, ding. I don't have a piano turned on or anything, but you can, anyway, so let's move on. Oh, wait, got a little something else for you. Remember how I was telling you that, there's more below. I could even scroll down. Did this for you. Okay. Actually, let me remove those. So this is everything below. Let's see. Right here. Well, it changed. Okay, let's see here. Here we go. Ginsburg hint. See it down in the corner? Okay. So, because this does refresh and they change out the link. So, I ran a little bit of a risk here, but I took a screenshot here of all the others. So we got 6 in this column, 3 in this column, 2 in this column. So we've got, what's that add up to? 11 more. 11 more doom dots. What do I mean by doom dots? Okay, just motorcyclist dies in crash. Their lightning strikes him in the head. Well, that's like, it's going far and wide to pull a story about death and doom. Or instability, or division, uncertainty, confusion, panic and confusion. I think that's what I named this. Right here, you can see it if you can see my cursor on the left and the second dot down. Panic and confusion. Okay, anyway, so we don't need this anymore. Here we go. So let's start off on a lighter note. Magic mushrooms. Shrooms. Shrooms, as they were called, and probably still are. Kind of a naturalistic LSD is the way it's sort of viewed in a lot of subculture communities. Excuse me. Got the sniffles again. Okay, so all right, let's take a look at this. What this article is about is magic mushrooms could replace antidepressants within 5 years, says a new psychedelic research center. The way they spelled center tells me this is in the United Kingdom, most likely. People on antidepressants long-term say they feel blunted. With psychedelic therapy, it's the opposite. They talk about an emotional release, a reconnection. Well, guess what? Duh. You know, people on antidepressants say they feel blunted. If you don't know by now that you should do everything in your power to not be on these things, and you should do everything in your power if you've been on them to get off them, then if you don't know by now, then, you know, I mean, I don't even know how to finish that sentence. You ought to know, right? And by the way, because it's definitely related, every time you hear about one of these mass shootings, hell, even not even a mass shooting, just a couple people shooting, this question needs to be asked, and it's seldom ever asked. What are they on? Who's their doctor? What were they prescribed? And what brand name, what chemical, what are they taking in their head? Now, I would go so far, and again, left turn, whoosh, people, I'm going to lose people. You're going to fly out of the back of the truck. So antidepressants, what happens when they take them? Why don't the chemicals make people like have, this is the one, okay, I'm going too fast for myself here. Like Tourette syndrome. You ever hear about Tourette syndrome and somebody like they blurt out happy words? $3 words that have positive meanings? No, it's always 4-letter words that are normally get you sent to the principal's office, right? Or get your mouth washed out with soap. Why is that? Why is it always something like that versus something good? Same thing with this. Why are not the antidepressants? Sure, people report they have been helped through times, and maybe they even would attribute I was suicidal and this saved my life. Look, people, we have to remember context is everything. We have to remember everything is going to have a hint of plausible deniability to it, okay? But the reality is these antidepressants open people up. Hey, this is where a lot of you might fly out of the back of the truck as we go around this turn. Because there are no seatbelts on this ride, baby. So antidepressants open people up to spirits. I think I said it in a video yesterday, the day before. Psychiatry/sorcery. Sorcerers. Okay, so that's not the point of, I guess we are talking about magic, quote unquote, magic mushrooms. But let's read a little bit further here because I have more to offer you on this. Hallucination-inducing drugs, like magic mushrooms, could be about to break big pharma, by the way. It's always big pharma. It's never pharma. It's big pharma because you know what? It's big. It's huge. In fact, how about this? Every time you hear big pharma, remember this is a gatekeeping word. How about huge pharma? Every time you hear somebody say big pharma, say you mean huge pharma. Aha. Aren't you glad you watched this far? See what I mean? It's mind control. I bet you didn't think of big pharma as being a mind control word. It's what you call a safe island. Big pharma. Huge pharma. Huge pharma. Okay? Huge industry. And it's pervasive, and it's related to the AMA, and you name it, okay? American Medical Association. And I'm just talking US. I mean, there's a worldwide situation. In fact, this is, again, a UK article, so this can reference England stuff. Okay, could be about to break big pharma's, huge pharma's stranglehold. Let me start over, take two. Magic mushrooms could be about to break huge pharma's stranglehold on the hugely lucrative market for antidepressants. Okay, first off, if you've got any fuse breaker within your brain to realize this, you just blew a fuse here. That's not true. You know that's not true. If you think for 1 minute that a stranglehold by huge pharma worldwide, in England, in the US, you name it, is going to be broken by this revelation, this new quote revelation. I mean, the people writing this or reporting that this guy must be on freaking mushrooms. Alex Matthews King, health correspondent and mushroom user, possibly, because this is crazy. Do you think that huge pharma is going to give up the market for antidepressants because somebody said, magic mushrooms, I took those and I actually I feel better? Well, that's not news, man. That may be news to you, but a lot of people have experienced this, okay? They increase their serotonin levels, whatever. They're not talking about the risks either, or the fact that this was done in controlled settings. We're not hearing doses. And so back to the news, back again. You think I'm just talking and making fun, think I'm just anti-huge pharma and anti-vaccine. I mean, I'm going to throw this in there because along the same lines, anti-antidepressants, anti-psychiatry, anti-vaccinations. Guess what? We're talking about the news. Don't forget the context. The big picture is, are magic mushrooms the answer to depression? Now, when people, it's reported that people remember 75% of what they hear. I don't know what it is. Excuse me. They forget 75% of what they hear within a very short period of time. And how much they remember what they read. Well, I'll tell you, they remember a lot of time. They're going to remember the headline, right? So this is really basically just like marijuana would get stories like this. Now look at where marijuana is. And we've already heard, if you haven't by now, in Colorado, they were just legalized, or at least made deprioritized as far as a criminal offense. Okay, magic mushrooms, shrooms. Okay, so we'll be seeing more of this. And that's where the odds are high. We'll be seeing more. That's where my money is. I'm betting on that. Okay, so back to it. We're not done. So, wow, I don't think I've been 30 minutes already, but I can tell this is not going to be just a 30-minute video, okay, unless I stop here. But I'm not ready to stop because old Alex here is really tripping me out. So magic mushrooms going to break big pharma's stranglehold? Unlikely. In fact, I'd like to really place money on that. I'd like to make bets on that. And anyway, there's no time frame, there's no dosages, there's nothing. And what I was saying about the context. So this sends people into the idea that this is something to look into. And it's kind of irresponsible in a sense, because somebody can take mushrooms and lose their mind. They could lose their mind. All right. At Imperial College London, Doctor is leading one of the first trials to test how therapy he is now currently leading using psilocybin mushrooms, which are currently banned in the UK, compares to leading antidepressants. Well, there's other news I haven't talked about. I'd say this guy is cruising for a bruising. He might find himself, committing suicide with 2 shots in the back of the head, because you're dealing with control mechanisms. You ever thought about this? You think you're just controlling depression. No, it's a control mechanism. Now, there's another thing I want to share that I skipped over here. Antidepressant prescriptions have doubled in England in a decade, with around 7 million adults taking the drugs. 7 million. Now, I don't have the figures on England's population, but somebody probably ought not to be taking those, and they are. That's a cop-out, or they've been overserved. If you ever heard that term, they've been overserved. Doctor, you overserved me. You're giving me drugs I really shouldn't be taking or don't need, okay? 7 million adults. Well, I don't know. I guess if I had to put up with living under old Queenie and all the princes and dukes and duchesses and all that nonsense, and most of the people around me were basically still acting like they're freaking feudal serfs, I might need some drugs just to get up in the morning and get to work and get back to bed. Take them to get me going and take them to get me to sleep. Well, a lot of people are living like that, even here, by the way. Okay. While he won't prejudge the results of the study, he says participants describe a cathartic emotional release with psilocybin therapy, the polar opposite of antidepressants. Well, no crap, and you don't really hear about this in the news. So let's say the polar opposite of this. Let's do it. What does that mean? The polar opposite of antidepressants, which patients who complain leave their emotions positive and negative blunted. Well, that just means you got a little fog or something. Let's put it this way. Participants describe a cathartic emotional release. Polar opposite of that is what? If it's not cathartic, it's bottling you up. Emotional release, and ostensibly this is, or presumably this is positive. So this is emotional release of a negative nature. All right, well, that exercise didn't yield too much, but yeah, so that's one way you got to read the news. So they didn't really tell us the polar opposite. Is a negative or blunted the same, opposite polar opposite in polarity? Okay, maybe. All right, I'm a little bit too focused on that. It's the first of many studies planned under the banner of the new Center for Psychedelic Research at London's Imperial College. I'd like to see what these dudes look like. It's a Center for Psychedelic Research, man. What are they pulling up in? A VW bus, I mean, come on. Let's have some fun with this. All right. The large empty floor of the university's Hammersmith campus will house a bank of treatment rooms. Well, that sounds pretty clinical. UK's first psychedelic therapy research clinic. Well, by the way, it may be the UK's first one, but the US has one. Has had many. It's called the general public. It's called the CIA. Okay, look into it. People have been killed because of their experiments. When I mean killed, they've been messed up, and then they've also been well, let's move on. Okay. License. Here's the kicker. Okay, remember, they're saying that it might replace huge pharma. Well, antidepressants, because of people like me, are starting to maybe pick up a little traction. I mean, the public's becoming more and more aware of the wool that's been pulled over their eyes regarding these things. Many more questions are being asked. Many more, the track record is starting to pile up, right? So what do they got to do? They got to switch gears. Who's they? The powers that shouldn't be. So what's going to happen? And a prototype and inspiration for licensed psychedelic medicine clinics of the future. Well, just like marijuana, they're going to make money off of it. License it. What is a license? A license is getting permission. Generally, you're going to have to pay for it. So you're going to have to pay. People are going to have to pay taxes, licensing, inspections, you name it, to have a clinic. And then you're going to be paying for that through or at least the victims of who need the people who need this or might need this, if it's legitimate, if it's really helpful, which, by the way, it probably is. And here, how do I know it probably is? Well, in Genesis 1:29, here we go. Context, how to frame the news. Okay. In Genesis 1:29, God said, "Behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat." All right, well, obviously, unless you're talking portobello mushrooms, which you can cook them up like steak, yummy, yummy. Okay. They're not, fruit and herbs and seeds are not really meat. Well, what does that mean? Okay, this is from the KJV version. That's the way that reads. It shall be for meat. Well, basically, it means it shall be for you to consume. So this verse is actually used a lot by some people who are proponents of legalization of marijuana. Marijuana is legal in the sense of God's law. So if you're a Christian or follower of the way, just like certain things that are God's law that you can walk in against man's law, I'm all for it. How can they outlaw a plant? Who are they? The powers that shouldn't be. And right there, you don't ever hear that said. You always hear the powers that be. Even people that are talking against it, the powers that be, start saying the powers that shouldn't be. Do you know how powerful language is? They do. That's why you call your children kids. You've been programmed to call them goats without even thinking about it. Not sheep, not precious lambs, goats. Good for milk, good for meat. Human resources, which is another thing I'm going to talk about possibly. This is going to be an hour and a half long. I've got an appointment later, and I need to prepare for it. But excuse me. But this is important. You're important. I'm important, and what I'm doing right now is important. It is. It is important. So God said, "Look." He said, "Behold." He said, God said, "Look." Well, that's probably not the tone he used. He was talking to the first people. He said, "Behold," in all its glory, by the way. "Behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed. I've given you every plant which is upon the face of all the earth." That's pretty incomprehensive. "Which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, and which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for you to consume." Well, there you have it. We need to know about these things. You can't just eat things willy-nilly. Obviously, there's mushrooms that'll kill you. There's poison mushrooms. You don't just eat everything that's a plant, But my point is like, look, they want to take these. What does this mean? Licensed psychedelic. This means that when mushrooms are given their due or more esteem than just a subculture little side thing that you can land in jail for if you're caught growing them or using them or selling them. Now it's going to be, they're still going to keep that, but now they're going to make money off of it. Just like it's going on in marijuana. The marijuana people, it's an industry. There's stocks now. It's going to be, one of the big ways they make it legal is like, well, let's tax it. These are statists. These are people the state is their god. And they think that it's a positive thing if, just like prostitution, make prostitution legal, we should just tax it and regulate it. If you think taxing things is a good thing and that money that's pulled in from taxes is used efficiently and you're a statist. Your God is the state. Take some personal responsibility. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so maybe I'm spending too much time on this. It's the work on depression where research is most advanced, most promising. Well, what other areas are they researching? They're only researching depression. What other promising things is? Maybe there's spiritual aspects, Anyhow, on the current trial, 60% participants with moderate to severe depression will receive psilocybin treatment accompanied by a therapy session with a clinical psychologist. Well, now this opens it up. It's like how much of it has to do with the psilocybin, how much of it has to do with the quality of the psychologist. There's just a lot of room for this. Is science falsely so-called? Okay. Sure, there could be some good information gathered from this, and it may be a well done trial and experiment. However, any critical thinking can punch holes in this till kingdom come. All right. Anyway, so I don't think that's even a magic mushroom, by the way. How do I know? The participants will also be randomly allocated to receive either a placebo or the drug escitalopram. I don't know what that is. I've never had it. Never seen it before. With either researchers or patients knowing who is in each group. Escitalopram. So what do we do? Just gloss over it, or we go look and see what it is? Sounds like a diazepam with the pram part, but maybe not. It's used to treat depression. Works by helping restore the balance of certain natural substance, serotonin. Belongs to a class of drugs known as the SSRIs. Okay, so they're basically getting, that must be an English one. They're getting basically a type of a Prozac or something. There we go. Here we go. It's in the next sentence. That's one thing I don't like about articles. They're just they're peppered with photos and all this stuff. SSRIs, biggest part of the antidepressant market. That's right. Ask people there's lots of ways to boost your serotonin You know, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, said some Greek person. Psilocybin, they say the opposite. They talk about an emotional release or reconnection, this key emotional center being more responsive. Well, let me ask you something. Just search your soul here. Do you think that this was not folk knowledge or common knowledge anytime in the last 100 years or the industrial age before huge pharma? Do you think that this was not known? In fact, let me posit something to you. I don't care what you're taking, what drugs you got. Do you think there's a natural version of it? And where do you think they came up with this? They just got a beaker and test tubes, and they're just like popping chemicals in there, experimenting with ratios, and then running them through rat brains and seeing how they act. Well, there's a little bit of that, but where are they getting their ideas from? Well, they're getting them from plants in nature, a rainforest, moss on trees, you name it. Okay? They're basically making an analog of what God made and copywriting it so they can make bucks on it. Well, you could argue, well, that's a way to control the distribution and quality. Well, okay, yeah, that's fine, but so is farming and growing things. And anyway, so let's move on because this turns into 45 minutes on this. The bottom line is that this is a little bit misleading. Magic mushrooms are now like basically given the they're basically being endorsed here just by the headline. Okay, just by the headline. So moved on from that, right? So let's talk about I'm going to save the whatever. I'm going to save, no wonder they call him Mayor Pete, because this name, I've never heard this before. And, I don't have a German phone book, but it's just kind of weird. Like I said before, Ellen DeGeneres, the guy's married to a man. Let me say that again. He's married to a man. And he wants to lead the free world in the face of, first of all, even if you're dealing with even just dealing with the vast population of the world who are under Islamic dominion, they throw homosexuals off of buildings. How's that going to go for diplomacy and relations and things? I don't know. I guess it'd be fun to watch. You're going to see him walking with the Saudi Arabian king and holding hands like old GW. I don't think so. But anyway, I'm highlighting butt because gay men have butt sex. All right. Picture this guy. Okay. I didn't want to get into this just yet. Here's your president. You fill in the blanks. But like Ellen DeGeneres, what's the word I'm looking for? Like Mad Magazine. What do they do? I want to say parody. Well, again, it's so close to the word degenerate. And then this guy, it's just like it's almost like in your face a joke. This guy's a Rhodes Scholar. What does that mean? He went to Harvard, by the way. So did a lot of these people who end up in the quote unquote halls of power. Why? Because they're so smart? Because Harvard's a place that if you're smart, that's the elite. You're the best of the best. You got the best brains and a noble character. Wrong. Okay. To quote Mr. Trump, President Trump, excuse me. He has attained that office. Whether that should be or not. All right. So we'll come back to that because, before I go around that bend and more people fly out of the truck, I'd rather you fly out of the truck on something else. So I wanted to get into this thing about illegal aliens, but yeah, let's do that because you're more likely to stick with me if I talk about this first, because I got a few turns that you're going to go flying out of the truck. You're going to go, the motorcycle's just going to like skid around the corner and you might just say, I want off. All right. Hundreds of illegals from Ebola-ridden Congo. Now, remember what Ebola is. This liquefies your insides. You're hemorrhaging. It's horrible. It's a horrible way to die, apparently. Hundreds of illegal. There are probably good ways to die, right? like in your sleep, you know? Hundreds of illegals from Ebola-ridden Congo dumped in Texas, 350 more on the way. Oh, well, what about the border wall? What about our border security? Why are we not being protected? You promised. You know, there's probably been more people come in under because we're being deceived. If you think your man in the house is really your friend, you've got to wake up. You've got to wake up. Or don't. You don't have to. I mean, ignorance is bliss, you know? But I say wake up and then, you know, maybe take some mushrooms for your bliss. Have best of both worlds. I'm just joking around. Okay, excuse me. I needed a little sip of water there. So hundreds of illegals. Now let's go back to the sludge here. Okay. Where is that? Right here, border battle. Well, I don't really know that a battle's going on. If there is, I mean, this is really kind of, think about it. I bet you didn't think about it. It's easy to say border battle. And we just accept that there's this war to defend the border. And it's just, we're having a hard time stemming the evil tide of the flood of people coming in here and, you know, we're being dampered by the liberal side of things that wants basically open borders. There is no battle. There's a show. There's a big difference between a real battle. Let me put it this way. There's a difference between a real battlefield and a Hollywood set. Now, you can take a real situation and have real people doing what they really do and make that a Hollywood set, in a sense. They're extras in your play. If you got the deepest pockets, you've got the way to frame the news, which they do. You have a way to report and frame the news. You've got clips you can make. You can slice and dice and edit it any way you want and present it to people and frame it any way you want. And you've got yourself a stage and extras and actors. And there is no battle. There's a facsimile of a battle because hundreds of Ebola-ridden people are being dumped in Texas. Well, who's dumping them there? The authorities. God, cognitive dissonance. Think about it. Think about it. You know, I've been saying for a few years, it's like, you know, a couple of years ago, I remember making, you know, social media, it's like, you know, the country's lost. It's lost. I don't mean just lost, like, oh, they're not all saved. I mean, it's like a ship without a rudder. However, it has a rudder. It has a wind. It has sails, and it has captains at the helm, you know, driving it into the rocks on purpose. Why is that? Well, I don't mean to leave you hanging, but it's a lot to get into. And, you know, I'm just pointing you in the right direction. Really, our focus today is just to frame the news in ways that, you know, we can read it and realize, man, you know what? Half the stuff I don't even need to hear about. The other half is not really true. It's spin and wash. And what is really the truth? Well, really, the only truth is, where are we in the stream of time? What's the word of God say? And, you know, let peace be your umpire. And he's the Prince of Peace, the King of Peace, and let him rule in your heart. There'll be wars and rumors of wars. There'll be pestilences and famines, and there'll be earthquakes in various places. And nation will rise against nation, and the hearts of men shall grow cold. They'll be lovers of their own selves. You know, we're living in these times. And you know what? We just got to keep on trucking. Got to keep on trucking until kingdom comes. Till kingdom comes. Okay. And it's coming. It's a coming. Okay. We walking in Jerusalem just like John. The new Jerusalem. All right, let's move on. Okay. So border battle, hundreds are being dumped in Texas. Mexico celebrates Trump deal in Tijuana rally. Okay, this is you know, has to do with jobs and tariffs and trade. TSA lets illegals skip airport security lines ahead of citizens? Question mark. They don't need a question mark. You could just say put a period. It's like, yes, we saw this article the other day that they're being able to fly without quote unquote documentation. That means no identification. We don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. I'll tell you what, they don't, when I get on a plane, the last time I went to international airport, which in the last year or so, and got on a plane, not only did they know who I was and want to know who I was, and I had to prove it again and again, from purchasing the ticket to checking in to getting on the plane and all this. They want to know what's in my They want to know what's in my vitamin daily pill box. They wanted to know if my toothpaste was really toothpaste. You get it? I'm just a white dude who doesn't have an accent and like I'm from another country. And get the shakedown, man. Get the shakedown. Yeah, got him feeling up my privates, right? Well, I'd argue my vitamin pill box is my private area, and so's my Dop kit. All of that. It's private. My toothpaste. If I'm transporting kilos of coke and all that stuff, they need to know that. Well, the X-ray machine could tell you that. My point is this: is like they're digging through every little last pocket. They're feeling every curve around my crotch. And looking for who knows what jollies, probably jollies, because make no mistake, just like a lot of perverts get into Boy Scout leadership and get into being gym teachers, a lot of these TSA agents, they go through a hiring process and a screening process, and who do you think is signing up to go just randomly, like random? I'm sure it's males on males and women on women, but who really wants that job to go and, you're feeling everybody's groin? Strangers. God, it's just weird. The benefits must be hella good. It's just hella good. There was a time, man. There was a time not that long ago where you could fly and you didn't deal with that. And everything was fine. Well, you say, oh, 9/11. Well, you don't know what happened on 9/11 then, do you? All right? You just don't. You don't. Admit it. You still think freaking Muslim terrorists flew planes into the building. And Santa Claus is real. Okay? So is the Easter Bunny. Okay, moving on. Oh, yeah. Well, I did switch coffee brands this morning, so maybe that's going on here, because this is pretty I lost track of time. It's been an hour. I'm sure it's been an hour. Okay. All right. So I guess that's enough to say about this. Excuse me. I've got to my nose is running a little bit. Better go catch it. Okay. So let's move on from this. I really don't want to talk about Mayor Peter Sniff here just yet. Yeah. Am I being derogative about it? Yeah. Because this guy wants to shove it down your throat. Okay. Well, I say shove it up your ass. How about that? Okay. So anyway, let's talk about the Jews and their lies. All right. Round the bend, hairpin turn. Don't go flying off the mountain out of the back of the truck. Okay. Hang on tight. All right. So, you can juggle this. All right. You anti-Semite, you. As I like to say, no, I love Palestinians. By the way, Palestinians aren't all Muslims. I haven't even talked about Islam Muslims yet, because it's, demonic doctrine right there. But this, I want to point out a few things, because you'll hear me say Jugal and YouTube, and what do I mean? Well, these things are owned, and so is Hollywood, and so is the porn industry, primarily, and so is, by the way, international banking, and I mean, this is stuff you need to know. If you want to know what's going on in the world and who's controlling the news, who's framing it in the best light for them and for their own agendas, you gotta address, as I've always said, my mom's always said to me, consider the source. Never knew what that meant until recently, I guess you'd say. Would have saved me a lot of trouble in my life if I just listened to my mom. Little things like that, little wisdom. Consider the source, let things roll off your back, stuff like that. She tried to help me, but I was bullheaded, hard-headed, didn't, I knew better. Whatever. I made it, thank God. So here we go. I want to talk about why I say that. Now, I probably should pull up, who owns Disney and MSNBC and NBC and CBS and CNN and, who's how many Israeli citizens are in our government, and, what does this all mean? Well, there's an agenda, okay? And I want to point, I'm not saying that everything in here is perfect and true. And I'm, first of all, let me say this. I hate even having to say this. I'm not a Nazi of, by the way, the hollow hoax of, like, we're taught from a young age in this country, at least I was, through public miseducation, government schools, that the Nazis were just these Jew hating, Jew burning, Jew killing monsters. It's not really what happened. Okay. And why do we hear that's what happened? Well, it's a manipulation of history. Okay. And what I'm trying to say, though, is that this is a loaded word. Just like when you say Christian, well, there's Episcopalians, Presbyterians, quote unquote Roman Catholics. I guess I should put the quote unquotes around Christian. And I'm not saying, I hate having to qualify what I'm saying because it's tedious and time consuming. Okay. Roman Catholicism is not Christianity. It's not. Christianity is the gospel of salvation through the sacrifice of Christ. Roman Catholicism is a lot of things, and one of them is a religion of works, meaning you kind of earn your way into heaven by being a quote-unquote good person and being a member of that organization. Okay. Anyway, what's my point? So you've got even Jehovah's Witnesses probably call themselves Christians, and Mormons call themselves Christians, and all these things. So there's a lot of variety to this language, and there's a lot of people, even people who are in, let's say, Roman, these things, like even in Islam, whatever, they are fundamentally good people. Okay, we're talking about the doctrines of demons. That's what we're talking about, the doctrines of demons, and that's, let's not forget who our enemy is. My enemy is not any person. It's not gay people. It's not any racial thing. It's not people of any other religion. It's their doctrines. Now, some of their doctrines may cause them to act in certain ways that definitely put them as enemies, because look, there are manifestations of, for example, Islam that really want to wipe you out because you're not a Muslim. And, I've seen Muslim apologists. I've had friends of them on Facebook, and ultimately they end up, banning me because they, if I ever decide to engage for whatever, my amusement or something, because it is really a waste of time. It's like, what am I going to do? Pull somebody out of that? No, they believe for whatever reason that they're just misunderstood, Well, again, plausible deniability. Let's not forget that. So let me move on, because I'm kind of going all over the place here. But what I'm trying to say is qualification, which, may or may not be acknowledged by the censors, and maybe the censor in you, is that this does not mean that I don't like Jewish people. I hate Jewish people. Oh, I must be a Nazi. I want to kill Jews. It doesn't mean anything like that. Okay. It means you need to know that there are elements, very powerful, very wealthy elements, that they call themselves Jews, but they are not. What do you mean? Well, here, you know what? I'm going to tell you what I mean. Didn't even think to kind of look this up for you. Let me do that real quick. Excuse me. Okay. In Revelation 2:9, now I don't have time to, read the whole context, all this kind of stuff. I just want to talk about the reference. Now, this is the Lord, the Son of God, talking. And he says, I know your works and your tribulation and poverty, speaking to a church. But you are rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Okay. Then Revelation 3:9, the next chapter, he says, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before your feet and to know that I have loved you. Well, that would have to be kind of expounded upon, study what that means. The point being is that there are those who claim to be Jews and who are really not Jews in the biblical sense. Okay. They use that word and they disguise themselves as quote unquote God's chosen people. Well, that's kind of loaded because they really believe that, and it really ultimately manifests in a type of supremacy and racism that is very prevalent. When you open your eyes to it, you'll see it. Who can you not criticize? Like right now, somehow this video, there could be somebody who watches, they don't even have to listen and understand what I'm saying. There are people that maybe review videos and stuff. All they have to hear is that I said anything about, Israel or Jewishness, and boom, flagged, banned, shut down. That's all they need to reacting to their programming. Okay. Because they don't take the time to really, they don't care about the truth. They just care about, keeping their job, whatever. Anyway, so what do I want to tell you to do here? I want to make you aware of a few things that you maybe ought to make yourself aware of. And again, I don't necessarily say that everything in here is perfect and true. You read it, you figure it out. First of all, let's talk about Martin Luther. Now, I read through this, and I put these links in the description. You need to read. If you read the Wikipedia article, this sounds horrible. It sounds like he wants to murder Jews and all this. I mean, that's what he says. He also seems to advocate their murder. What's the operative word here? Seems to. Well, let's remember that there's, for example, if you watch anything on the moon, you're always going to get a Wikipedia thing right under the YouTube video about the moon. Why? Because there's a lot of traction that a lot of NASA lies. Let's just say that. Okay. So they're always putting articles. Well, they make these articles have their own slant. Now, I will tell you, I have not read this. I've not read it, but you've heard of Martin Luther, Lutherans, right? And I think it's important to read. It's an important document. Why would he write this stuff about him? Well, it's important to kind of maybe read this and understand some things and glean some things from it. Let's talk about that. So gleaning some things. So the next thing would be Henry Ford, your own American Henry Ford. He wrote a series of essays called International Jew. Right here, it's called anti-Semitic. Okay, that's a buzzword. You hear it all the time, anti-Semite. You don't want to be called an anti-Semite anymore than you want to be called a racist. Okay, that's what we're conditioned to believe. Well, okay, I'm kind of getting tired. I want to wrap this up myself. Okay, The International Jew by Henry Ford. Read it. Just read it. Pick some things up out of it. Now remember, this is all context. Context is king. Who runs the media? Who runs the international banking system? It's people. It's basically, this is one way to put it, the international Jew. Okay, not your local, good citizen who's a very devout person who has been Jewish since he was a little boy or little girl. That's not who we're talking about. Okay, very important you make that distinction. This isn't to go around and every time you see somebody dressed in Hasidic clothing or, I ran into somebody the other day. I saw somebody that looked very, I'm certain they were Jewish of some ilk, but, would I, say, excuse me and step out of the way? Like if we, are in the same aisle or something? Sure. I hate the person. Don't even know the person. Okay. We're all personally accountable for what we do and the lies that we choose to stay in. Okay. Anyway, again, there's just a lot of, this is very treacherous because very many people cannot make the leap out of seeing everything in broad brush strokes. They can't make the leap of seeing everything and without nuance, without dimensions. Think about that. Become a person that's 3-dimensional. 4 or 5-dimensional. I don't know. All I'm saying is don't be 2-dimensional. Okay? Because I'm not. And if you're hearing what I'm saying in 2 dimensions, black and white, meaning like he's either anti-Semite or he's not. You are an idiot. A useful idiot to the powers that shouldn't be, but you're an idiot. So I don't mean to insult you, not to hurt your feelings. I mean, I mean to insult you because it's I'm deriding you. It's ridiculous. And you're a human being and you're better than that. Rise up to your fullest potential of mind and spirit and body, right? I got a long way to go in the whole body aspect. I mean, I've kind of been a lot of time at the computer the last 10, 15 years and not enough time, swinging the hammer onto rocks and breaking them up and, all right. Different kinds of rocks, I guess, let's say. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Okay, I have not even read this, but this is going to be right here. They even start out purporting. Okay, fabricated. Look, already. I knew it. I didn't even read it. Fabricated, purporting to describe a Jewish plan for global domination. Oh, there it is. Okay, when you hear people say globalists, right? That's what we're talking about. When you hear people say deep state, that's another. I could do a video on this. I lost a friend who, not like super close friend or anything, but he tended to promote and post a lot of things that you might consider like good, or I might say that's good. But as soon as the buzzwords starting hitting, with the last presidential election cycle, deep state came into the general consciousness. The deep state. Well, who is the deep state? What does that even mean? It's a gatekeeping word. It's a gatekeeping word, and so is globalist. And you need to know that. People think they know what they're talking about, or they've got some aha thing when they talk about the, quote, deep state. Well, who is the deep state? Well, like I said, I'm just pointing you to read some things, and maybe you'd start to figure some things out for yourself. I don't know. Maybe you'll have a different conclusion. Excuse me. Didn't mean to do that. So look, find a copy of this, read it, and you decide whether it's somebody really took the time to make a big hoax out of this, okay? Now, if you come through all this and you end up hating a bunch of people, that's in your heart, and you've got a problem in your heart, because the Lord says we're to love our enemies and pray for those who despitefully use us and abuse us, okay? Love your enemies, pray for them, try to, by the way, though, he did, however, it is important to note, he did say to the Pharisees, and there are Pharisees today, okay? He did say to the Pharisees, and you can extrapolate that to apply it to different types of, different manifestations of that kind of person. Jesus, not his real name. He said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, meaning they would recognize and love Christ. For he proceeds forth and came from God. And by the way, he proved it. He proved it. He did. If you want to stay in unbelief and think that all those are fables, all the miracles, all this stuff is just somebody's fiction, well, have you ever heard of Josephus? Jewish, I guess I should say archivist, Jewish historian. He chronicled Jesus was alive. Jesus, not his real name, by the way. He lived. So where did all these testimonies and stories come from? A couple guys sat around, drinking beer and smoking cigars and worked this story up to pull a hoax on everybody for centuries and millennia. Homie, don't play that. Homie, I don't think so. Okay, let me finish here. So if God were your father, he's saying to these back in the day Jewish Pharisees, religious leaders, okay, you would love me, for I proceeded and came from God. Neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my language? Even because you cannot hear my word. You are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, He speaks of his own, for he's a liar and the father of it. The devil's a father of lies. The devil comes to kill Satan. He comes to kill and his minions. He's not omnipresent. He's not omniscient. He's a he's a created being. He's a creature in a sense. He's not God. All right. And people serve him. There are people who conscientiously serve him. So this brings me on to the Talmud. Okay. You know, the Jews went into captivity in Babylon. And they were there for a long time. And they learned Babylonian ways. Well, that's still going on today. See, Babylonian Talmud. Okay. So the Talmud has a lot of stuff. If you look at let's say you see some video of a rabbi and behind him, he's got what looks like encyclopedias or like you might see behind a lawyer with a law book. It's all the Talmud. It's just massive. And it's, it really, you know, a lot of these people, the rabbis, they follow the Talmud. They don't follow the Torah, which would be like the first 5 books of the Bible. Here we go. The written Torah expressed in the Hebrew Bible. So that's right on point with what I'm saying. And, you know, I haven't read this either. I don't need to. I just pulled it up. I think I put the link in there for this one. Maybe I didn't quite get to that. But, you know, just look it up. Just Google it and find out. So just maybe put in, I don't even know. Let me try this. All right, let me put in Talmud perversion. Ah, look at this. It filled it in for me. Let's see here. Traditional source of sexual pleasure, my Jewish learning. Well, you'll have to sad sample of Talmudic teachings. You know, I have not explored this, but I think you need to explore it. And, you know, Talmud exposed, there's some videos. Is rabbinical Judaism so perverse it's irredeemable? Why would this even be here, right? You know, there's a lot of stuff in there. Like have you ever seen a rabbi do a bris and cut off the foreskin of a little baby's penis and then suck the blood off with his mouth? Really? Basically giving a little baby a blowjob, in a sense. Isn't that sick? It's sick. Now, what's that have to do with global dominion? Well, you just have to find out, okay? You find out. I say that a lot to people. Just find out. You know, you want to pay me, we'll do a book study or something, all right? But you don't pay me, I ain't got time for this, okay? I'm doing this for my own edification, let's say. All right, here's something that you ought to be aware of. When I say hollow hoax, okay? Well, obviously, and again, qualifier, disclaimer, you know, I'd probably be thrown in jail as a Holocaust denier, but I'm not saying something didn't happen like that to some degree. But Hitler was not sending people off to camps on rail cars to as fast as he could do it, gas them. That's what we're told. That's what we're taught. A genocide. Okay. Nope. That's not what happened. What do I mean by that? Find out. Just open your mind to the possibilities like, do I know everything about it? Is it really like a head? And look into it. Consider the evidence. I think you'll find out very quickly, that you've been sold a bill of goods. Well, not even sold. You were sort of given it as part of your kit. Okay. Here's what you need to know. Hellstorm, the real genocide of Nazi Germany. So what happened to the Germans after the war was quote unquote over? Horrors. The bombing of Dresden. Hellstorm, okay? Hellstorm, what's it have to do with? It has to do with how using the United States military, we slaughtered so many Germanic peoples, okay? What's another thing about the hollow hoax you don't know? Well, it's disproportionate to what happened in Russia with the Bolshevik revolution and all that. And who was running that situation? Millions died under in that. I'm not an expert in that, but like look into it. If you are so pissed off, pardon my language, but if you're pissed off at me for being this in your mind, wacko conspiracy theorist, just freaking look into it. Prove me wrong. Bring it on, son. Let's, cash you outside. I mean, it's, what a Rush Limbaugh used to say. It used to kind of irk me because it was so arrogant. He'd say, something about with his half his brain tied behind his back or something. I don't remember. It was something like that. It was really arrogant, but like, I'm so confident in what I've come to know and just in untangling the mess that, we're laden with from an early age, socially, culturally, educationally, that, it's not a match for me. It's not a match for me. I almost have to guard myself against being a little bit, a smart aleck about it. I don't mean to be. I can't believe people don't want to know the truth. They just don't want to know the truth. They don't like, maybe they feel unstable in shifting information. I don't know what it is, but this is why. Remember what we're talking about, putting our feet upon the rock. Who is the rock? The rock of our salvation, the steadfast, eternal, unchangeable Word of God. What's going on in the stream of time? When you're anchored into that, when you're grafted in, when you've, when the Spirit, how do I say this? The righteous are bold as a lion. That's what I'll say. It's in the Word. The righteous are bold as a lion. Righteous because we're perfect and good and, never say a bad word or, do a mean thing or do everything perfect. No, we're righteous by being adopted and given his righteousness in Christ. Come to him, acknowledging that we're, black as Toby. Our hearts are black as Toby, where we need redemption. We need salvation from our sins, forgiveness from our sins, deliverance from evil tendencies and our fleshly nature and our darkened mind. We need revelation of the truth. And we're saved. And we're given his righteousness through the blood. He died. He took our place, exchanged it, so we could become like him. Okay? And so with that foundation, this stuff, it just doesn't bother you. It bothers you in the sense that it's a lonely path. I mean, not everybody's going to sign up for it and you'll be persecuted for it. Okay? In this world, you're going to have trouble because you could actually, I think, there was a Canadian lady, I can't remember her name, to pull it up. We're not going to get to Mayor Pete. I'd like to, but that's enough. That's enough for today. He's going to fade away, in my opinion. I think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll fade out. This is just one of those, what do you call it? A trial balloon. Yeah. So we had Obama, which there could be things said about. What did Joan Rivers say before she was executed? That we've already got a gay president and a tranny first lady. And then, next thing you know, she's having a minor surgery and she's dead. Okay. Don't forget those Arkansas and Oklahoma governors the other day, or ex-senators. Now they're ex-people, been executed. Murdered. Sorry. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here. Murdered. It was just a robbery. Kind of weird coincidence. A coincidence. How about that? So that's another thing. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Well, no, it's all related. It's all related. I gotta tell myself, Uncle Benny, don't be so quick to apologize or rein yourself in. I need to tell myself that. I think I'll do better just to let it fly. Let your freak flag high, baby. Or excuse me, let your freak flag fly. So at any rate, wave your freak flag high. Let your freak flag fly. Try that, say that 10 times fast. Let your freak fly. That's too much. All right. So anyway, um, there you go. Make a great day. I think we're close to an hour and a half. I will say that my other hour and a half video got more views than any of them. So I don't know what that means. You know, it could have something to do with algorithms, could have something to do with the reviews by the censors. It's getting passed up the chain, you know. Oh, we got to shut this guy down. I don't know. I don't know. You know, world doesn't revolve around little old me and my little old opinions. You know, they could regard me as a curious little troll under a bridge for all I care. And that I'm not affecting or hurting anybody. But what does it say? A little leaven leavens the whole lump, right? You ever make bread? I have. A little leaven. It's amazing. It's just a tiny little bit. Can turn a little lump into one big old thing of pizza dough. Okay? It can leaven. All right. So this is the leaven. You know, this should multiply. So you make a great day. Okay. Really. And the links, I should have most of the links in there. If not, you know, you can look it up yourself. I mean, you got the ability. So, you know, let's call it a day. You know, there you go. Another edition of the Sludge Report for you. All right. Don't be a hater on me. You know what? I really don't care. I don't. All right. Make a great day.